What up, YouTube? Here with a post-fight video, the Artur Beterbiev versus Dmitry Bivol fight. This was for all the belts at light heavyweight to determine who is going to be the undisputed light heavyweight champion. And before I give you the summary of what took place in the fight, I'm going to tell you all the results first. Artur Beterbiev got the win via majority decision, with one judge having it scored a draw while the other two had it scored 116-112 and 115-113 in favor of Beterbiev. I personally had the fight scored in favor of Dmitry Bivol 115-113. And not that it does matter, because those experts and those that are avid boxing fans, majority of what I saw online was people that had witnessed the fight say Bivol should have walked out that fight as the undisputed light heavyweight champion, as did I. Yes, this was a close competitive bout, but I do think from what I saw, Bivol got the best of Beterbiev. And how the fight went was, for the first 4 rounds, it was all Bivol. It was after the 3rd round, the 4th round, that's when Beterbiev decided to loosen up and go for his onslaught more than he was being reserved in the beginning part of the fight. And that's how Beterbiev tends to fight. He is a very reserved fighter, where he tends to collect the algorithm of his opponent and sit back and observe what his opponent's game plan is like. And then after studying and collecting the data of his opponent's onslaught and game plan and their rhythm, that's when Beterbiev decides to open up, and that's when Beterbiev feels more comfortable to let go of his attacks. And that's when he decides to approach his opponent once he gives the first 3 to 4 rounds away to his opponents, to see how he's gonna counter combat the game plan of his opponent. And he is very efficient at cutting off the ring and walking his opponent down and pressuring them with calculated, well-placed, powerful punches with the natural heavy hands that he carries. Prior to this fight, Beterbiev had won all his fights via stoppage, and him having 100% knockout ratio made him one of the most well-recognized top 10 pound-for-pound fighters that is currently active right now. And now that he is the undisputed light heavyweight champion, this further legitimizes and cements his status as a elite pound-for-pound top fighter that is currently active in the sport of boxing right now, regardless of the fact that many people do find this result of this specific fight to be controversial, because many fans that watched this fight thought that Bivol outboxed Beterbiev. And Beterbiev, to be frank, he has not fought an opponent that is at the level of a Dmitry Bivol. Yes, he's fought Joe Smith. Yes, he's fought Callum Smith. Yes, he's fought guys that are well recognized amongst the top of the light heavyweights. But other than Zerto Ramirez and Bivol and Beterbiev themselves, and then there's Anthony Clark, Joshua Buatsi, Dan Aziz, William Hutchinson, names of guys that I just mentioned that fight at the top of the light heavyweights, but they are not nowhere on the same level as a Dmitry Bivol or a Artur Beterbiev is themselves. And that's why this was the key fight to make happen in the light heavyweight division. And the fight itself didn't disappoint. It was fast-paced. We saw both fighters display their best attributes. It's just the fact that Bivol fought the better, more efficient, effective fight, and he was more consistent than Beterbiev was. As I said, Beterbiev usually tends to give the beginning rounds, the opening rounds, to his opponent for that specific purpose of wearing his opponents down after figuring out the style of his opponent. But the hybrid fluidity and the overall skills that Bivol has, it was very difficult for Beterbiev to execute that typical Beterbiev execution that we're so used to seeing Beterbiev execute. And after the fourth round, as I said, the first 4 rounds, I scored it a shutout in favor of Bivol. And then, as I said, the 4th round was when Beterbiev seemed to gain more confidence and saw a opportunity to start walking down Bivol and close that gap, that distance between him and Bivol, and start applying pressure to Bivol, backing Bivol up against the ropes and against the corner, and Beterbiev throwing more than one punch, more than just a jab, and Beterbiev throwing combinations for Bivol to be forced to fight off his back foot and move laterally and not throw as often as he was in the prior first 4 rounds. And Bivol, he was pumping that jab out there. He was throwing combinations, mixing his punches. His punch placement has always been excellent, from going downstairs and upstairs. And throughout the whole entirety of the fight, Bivol was able to display his speed advantage and how much faster he is on foot, along with his hand speed when compared to Artur Beterbiev, who hasn't made a reputation for his speed. He's made a reputation for his excellent ability to cut off the ring against his opponents and walking down his opponents and pressuring his opponents by his power. And Bivol respected the power that Beterbiev had in his hands. And mind y'all, as I had mentioned before, as this is well known, Beterbiev before this fight never went the distance before. The hardest fight that we've seen Beterbiev compete in was against Gazdet, and that went 10 rounds, and I believe that is the longest time that Beterbiev has competed in before going the distance versus Bivol this past Saturday. And once Beterbiev started finding success in his offense and landing significant blows on Bivol, and once Bivol felt the power of Beterbiev, Bivol was on retreat mode. And much credit to Bivol, he was able to keep calm. He was able to have his game plan intact, and Bivol wasn't panicking, and he was able to neutralize the offense onslaught and the forwardness of Beterbiev by having his guard up, having his head and upper body movement on core, along with his footwork and his overall ring generalship and his movement, because he was able to control throughout the majority of the fight, the distance of where they're fighting at. Yes, Beterbiev did make it uncomfortable for Bivol whenever he had pressured Bivol and land significant shots at Bivol, and Bivol would have to move laterally and fight off his back foot. And Beterbiev, his best rounds were in the mid rounds, and as well as the 11th round. And we saw a resurgence come from Bivol after the 7th round, because after the 4th round, the 5th, 6th, and 7th round, I had scored it for Beterbiev. And this is how you know Bivol is a brilliant, smart fighter because he also knows how to reserve his energy. He knows how to organize his energy to not be punched out and to not overwork himself where he is out of steam. And that's why he was able to reserve himself and be on the defensive end during the mid rounds when Beterbiev displayed his success and Beterbiev was getting the better of Bivol during their exchange. Bivol would get better of Beterbiev during the midst of their exchange when it came to more clear, accurate, effective, cleaner shots. But you could tell the difference in power when Beterbiev would land his shots on Bivol, because this is the unique part of Beterbiev, and we've seen this aspect, this skill, this part of Beterbiev from his prior fights where it looks as if he's not landing nothing significant, but it's still taking a toll on his opponents, and as was in this fight. And much credit to Bivol because he reacted well to the punches of Beterbiev, and he was able to bounce back and counterattack Beterbiev. And this was later on to the latter parts of the missed round as they were closing in on the fight and heading towards the championship rounds. Bivol was able to pick his energy back up and step on the gas pedal and show that speed difference and movement difference, and he sparked up his energy again and picked up the rhythm and made the pace go faster and control the tone of the fight after the 7th round. And he was able to slow down Beterbiev's oncoming onslaughts at closing that space between him and Bivol, or him and Beterbiev, I should rather say. And Beterbiev was being stopped at his tracks with efficient, well-timed, well-placed, accurate shots from Bivol. And in the 11th round, Beterbiev, he had a resurgence at bringing that pressure to Bivol and throwing combinations and letting it all out there to sort of say, because both fighters during this time of the fight, they don't know how the fight is going to go. It's a close competitive fight, and they don't know how the scorecards are looking. And much credit to Beterbiev for stepping on that gas pedal and showing signs of desperation by turning up the offensive heat onto Bivol and having Bivol in retreat mode with his onslaught. And in the 12th round, both fighters seemed to be a little gassed out. Beterbiev, because he threw more than 1,000 punches throughout the fight, and him never going a full 12 rounds before, you could tell. And with the age that Beterbiev's at, Beterbiev is in his late 30s, and to add more to that factor, Beterbiev, from the originally scheduled date that they were supposed to fight, he had to pull out of it because he had to have surgery on his knees. So it was hard for him, especially at his age right now, for him to keep up with a very movement-based fighter like Dmitry Bivol. And for a fighter that relies on footwork as much as Beterbiev, who likes to step on his opponent's gas pedals by bringing that pressure and walking down his opponents and cutting off the ring versus his opponents effectively, you're going to need core leg strength and foot balance for him to efficiently cut off the ring versus his opponents. And that was a disadvantage factor for the older fighter in Beterbiev. And with that knee surgery added to his factor that he had recently, that took a toll on him. And with the fact that he has never gone into the championship rounds before this fight, had to been a tiring factor for Artur Beterbiev. And as far as Bivol, it was the shots from Beterbiev that was tiring and taking off from the stamina of Dmitry Bivol in the last round. And Beterbiev did outwork Bivol in the 12th round, and I could say throughout the entire fight, because you look at the CompuBox punch stat numbers, Beterbiev threw over 1,000 punches, while Bivol threw over, I believe, 500 punches. And Bivol was more accurate and landed the more cleaner flush shots and fought the more technically better fight than Bivol did. But when it comes to how the judges tend to score fights a lot of the times, is they tend to favor the aggressive action pursuer more than the classic boxer puncher who's on the defensive side of things. And that could have been the reason as to why the judges had it in favor for Beterbiev instead of Bivol. As I said, it was a close competitive fight, but to the avid long-time boxing fans who tend to have good general knowledge of the sport, Bivol fought the classic successful boxer puncher, a technically fundamental sound fighter fights to get the win over on the brute aggressor. And I thought Bivol did just enough to get the win over on Beterbiev. He had more momentous moments in the fight, and we've never seen Beterbiev be neutralized to the level we've seen him versus Bivol. And I say neutralized as in where Beterbiev, not only was he not able to knock out and stop Bivol, but he wasn't able to even drop Bivol in this fight. Even with the power shots that he landed on Bivol, Bivol fought the perfect fight that would have earned him the victory. He fought the style that should have earned him the victory, and Bivol did what he had to do to get the win. Yeah, he didn't throw as many punches as Beterbiev, but he did the more meaningful work when compared to what they did during those 12 rounds. And I expected Bivol to win this way if the judges would have had it scored for Bivol. And I didn't find enough time to make a preview video for this fight, and I know I should have because this fight was of a important magnitude. It's probably going to go down as one of the most important marquee fights that went down for the year of 2024. And my apologies, my fault for not coming out with a preview video to this fight, but I was expecting Bivol to win this fight. By the way, how he fought Beterbiev this past Saturday, I thought Bivol was going to be too fast for him, too technically sound for him, and would have outboxed Beterbiev the way he did. And I was expecting a close competitive fight, and I was expecting Bivol to defeat Beterbiev in a close competitive fight and edge him out by a round or two, which is exactly how I had this fight scored on my scorecard. And Beterbiev would have made this fight as difficult as it could be for Bivol, which he did, because Beterbiev is a good fighter at closing that distance, and once he gets in range, he does efficient work and he executes that knockout win that he has always executed prior to fighting Dmitry Bivol. And yes, this was a close competitive bout that I thought Bivol should have won, and I am confident and standing on the fact that Bivol should have won. And I don't know if there's going to be a immediate rematch. Now, a lot of people can say it could be dangerous for Dmitry Bivol to rematch Artur Beterbiev because Beterbiev isn't a dumb fighter. He likes, as I said, he likes to telegraph his opponent's shots, and that way he could, once figuring out his opponent, that way he could close a gap and execute that TKO that he has always scored on. But fortunately, speaking for Bivol's part, Bivol, he knew what he was doing even when he was on retreat mode and wasn't throwing as much as he was in the earlier parts of the round, and or in the earlier parts of the fight during the beginning rounds. And that's because he knew he had to save his energy for the championship rounds, and he's been in deep waters before plenty of times before fighting Beterbiev, unlike Beterbiev. That way, when he drags on the older Beterbiev to the championship rounds, he could have Beterbiev fatigue, and he could take advantage of the fact that Beterbiev cannot turn it up on Bivol in the latter rounds. And that's the smart strategy part of Bivol when Bivol was on retreat mode. And this is not taking nothing away from Beterbiev's power and his ability to hurt his opponents, but Bivol knew what he was doing and he absorbed those shots very well. Hence why a rematch between the two is the right move to make and is the most intriguing bout to make happen in the light heavyweight division still, because of how close and competitive this fight was. And I can confidently say that if they do go for an immediate rematch, it should be more of a chess match than it was in the first fight, because I was expecting this fight to go the way it did, and it was a chess match for sure. And Beterbiev is also a counterpuncher, and he is effective, and he's good at counterpunching, and that's because he likes to observe and reserve himself and his energy, and then once he finds an opening to close that gap and figures out the rhythm and the game plan of his opponent and his style, that's when he walks him down, and that's when he feels confident enough to throw his shots. And with Bivol, it was difficult to do, and for Beterbiev, now that he's the undisputed champion, at all the other sanctioning bodies that are considered to be major titles in the light heavyweight division have the undefeated British prospect Joshua Buatsi as their number one contender. That's within the WBA, WBC, WBO, and the IBF, where I believe the WBA is going to have Bivol at number one, but other than the WBA, WBC, WBO, and IBF have Joshua Buatsi as number one. He had a close split decision win over on William Hutchinson in his last fight last month, and that was the toughest challenge that we've seen Buatsi compete in. And is he ready for a Beterbiev or a Bivol or even a Zerto Ramirez based on his last performance versus Hutchinson? I'd say he's still a little too green for that. Give him like 2 or 3 more fights before he gets a challenge for the undisputed light heavyweight title. Hence why I say the immediate rematch between Beterbiev and Bivol is what is the best move for both fighters. And this had a successful turnout, and that's why they could have this fight yet again. Either again in Saudi Arabia. I say it's better for them to have it in the Eastern Hemisphere, whether it's in Saudi Arabia or Russia, where both fighters are from. And they're fond of each other. Before boxing, they had history at playing football together, and that's soccer for the Americans out there. And now that they fought each other, they're not strangers when it comes to the boxing side of things, and there's going to be more of an intriguing chess matchup to see who could technically out-edge each other. And that's why I want to see another fight between Beterbiev and Bivol. And as I have said, for the light heavyweight division, other than Buatsi, I don't see a big next big guy from the light heavyweight division that's gonna come out to resurge and rejuvenate the light heavyweight division after either Beterbiev or Bivol retires. Bivol's got much more time than Beterbiev does, because Beterbiev is almost at the stage of his career where he's about to enter his 40s, and with the knee injury that he had, it's got to take a toll on his body, and the undefeated father age is slowly catching up to Beterbiev. Hopefully not, because he still fought like how he fought versus Bivol this past Saturday, speaking for the longevity sake of Beterbiev's career. And as far as Bivol goes and Beterbiev goes, there's talks about Canelo Alvarez maybe fighting Beterbiev for the light heavyweight title. I don't think either fighters are interested in fighting each other. Beterbiev doesn't have any interest in moving down, and Canelo Alvarez has, I believe, talked about he has no interest in moving back up to light heavyweight. And that's why, as I said, Bivol versus Beterbiev 2 is what makes sense. And unfortunately for Bivol, he deserved the victory, but he didn't get the win this time. And maybe in the rematch, he's going to get the better of Beterbiev to crown himself as the undisputed light heavyweight champion. And we've seen Beterbiev in scarce moments before. As I said, Garza gave him a good challenge before he was stopped in the 10th round. And Anthony Yarde gave him a huge cut over his forehead where Beterbiev was bleeding profusely, but was still able to come back from that cut that he has suffered and stop Yarde, I believe, in the 7th round. And Bivol gave him the most skillful challenge that he's ever faced in his career, technically speaking, this past Saturday. And that does it for this post-fight video, y'all. If y'all enjoyed this content, subscribe for more and hit the like button, the share button to get this channel and all the videos related to it out there. And speaking of what's out there, my other social media platforms are in the links in the description. And if y'all want to go further and beyond to support this channel and to donate, y'all could click the links in the description to help show y'all support for this channel in other ways as well. And anything will be appreciated. And that's all to it as far as this video goes. Y'all be good and peace.